Guys, happy Mother's Day. I hope that today that you show your mama or any woman that is like a mama to you lots and lots of love. Speaking of love, we are kicking off a brand new series that is all about love and hate. We live in a world that uses the words love and hate pretty loosely. For example, we'll pretty much say that we love or hate lots of things. Like, you might say, I love Lucky Charms. I love iced coffee. I love summer. But then you might also say things like, I hate tomatoes. I hate snakes. We live in a love-hate culture. And I could give pretty much the shortest teaching in the world and say, okay, guys, here's what you need to do. Choose love, don't choose hate. The end. And we all already know that. We all know that we want to be people of love. So why do we sometimes choose to hate, sometimes choose to hate a lot, when we already know that love is what we want? Now you might be thinking, I'm not a hater, like that's not me. And I hope not. Sometimes though, we're really prone to judgment. We're a culture that loves to hate on other people and their ideas. And if you're not totally convinced, think about politics. We make fun of celebrities. We'll make a private group text outside of the other group text so that we can talk about the people that we left out of the private group text. And we might not say it aloud, but most of us have opinions on everything and everyone. And so today, there are a lot of things that we could talk about, a lot of different ways that people hate on other people. But today we are going to focus on one. Gossip. Tea. Trash talk. Now before you roll your eyes and you think, JT, are you for real? Like, gossip is just part of life and like everybody does it. So yeah, I get it. It's not nice, but like, what do you expect? I mean, adults do it too, so you can't possibly think that we're not going to. Or you might be thinking, I don't talk about other people, but I know people that do, like all the time. So first, let me say this. Yes, adults are just as bad about spilling the tea, maybe worse than teenagers. Second, I will completely acknowledge that gossip is wildly accepted as normal in our culture. But although it is widely accepted, we also know it's not kind. And so pay attention to that part of you that wants to defend continuing in a behavior that you know is not kind. So if we know it's not kind and we know it's not loving, why is it so tempting to trash talk, to gossip, to spill the tea about people? And how has something that we know is mean-spirited, how has that become the norm in our culture? Well, I think there are a few reasons that make gossip so tempting. First, we all have insecurities. And so if we can point out what's wrong with everybody else, it helps us, deflect from the insecurities that we have about ourselves. Second, it's an easy way to bond with people. If other people see that you know things and you're willing to share it, it's an easy way to get in with a group of people. Third, it's fun. Like, it's fun and entertaining to be a person who knows details or in the middle of a bunch of drama about other people. It's fun to feel like you have the upper hand because you know the stuff, right? Fourth, some of us are really competitive, and knowing some gossip makes us feel like we have an advantage, right? Like, it's in that competitive spirit that we might just share something that's a little less than flattering about somebody else so that we could be viewed a little, higher up and they're viewed a little, down here. If we just share a little something about them that maybe isn't that great. Fifth, sometimes the tea we're spilling is true. And so we justify talking about other people because we feel like it's fair game since it's actually true. We tell ourselves that the people we're talking about kind of deserve it because they brought it on themselves with whatever scandalous thing they did. We say things like facts or I'm just telling it like it is, right? And we feel justified in the things we say. Last, sometimes we genuinely have innocent intentions. We didn't mean to embarrass somebody. Besides, you're sure the person you told won't say anything. So sometimes we don't intend for it to be hurtful. Like I said, gossip is not just a high school thing. It's a people thing. There are shows and podcasts and YouTube channels dedicated to gossiping about and hating on other people. And social media has made this easier than ever. Can you say subtweet? There are celebrities who are famous because people gossip about them. Like, a lot of them, well, no, maybe not a lot of them, but some of them really haven't accomplished very noteworthy or legitimate things. Their whole fame seems to be centered around the amount of buzz that they can generate around themselves. And so kind of their whole degree of fame is centered around constant gossip. So gossip is wildly and widely accepted as part of our culture. But inside of us, we know it's not good. Gossip can feel really harmless a lot of the time until you're on the other side of it. It feels a lot different when you're the one that people are talking about. If you've ever been the one that everybody else is talking about, then you know that it's really bad. Sometimes it's humiliating. And it feels terrible to know that people are talking about you negatively and that there's nothing you can do to stop it. And that there's a fair chance that whatever's going around, whether or not it's true, that people are believing it. And so when you're the one that's being talked about, you feel the full effect of how painful gossip is. Despite the fact, though, that we know how hurtful it is, our culture fuels gossip. So if we're surrounded by a gossip culture, how is it possible to stop? So for some wisdom about this, I want us to learn today from Paul. So Paul's life was dedicated to starting churches and telling people about Jesus. And he would often write letters to churches that he had planted. Eventually, some of those letters would end up in the Bible, and they're called books of the Bible. But it's important for us to know that they were actually Paul's letters to churches that he had a relationship with. So one of those letters is now called the book of Ephesians, and it was written to a group of people in a city of Ephesus. Ephesus had a great deal of ethnic, religious, and cultural diversity. And as we know from our own very modern life, that when there are a lot of different perspectives, a lot of diversity of opinion, it tends to fuel gossip because there's plenty to talk about. There's plenty to disagree with. There's a lot of misunderstandings. And in those misunderstandings, we tend to pass judgment. In fact, for the people that Paul wrote to, these Jesus followers in the city of Ephesus, it would have been super easy for them to judge what they saw in the people of that community. And it would have been super easy for them to gossip. But Paul wanted these Christians in Ephesus to operate different from culture. So his letter is all about them as followers of Jesus Christ living lives that are unique from culture. And my hope is that you will hear what he wrote to them, and that we would be reminded that as followers of Jesus, we need to operate differently from culture sometimes. And so let's look at what Paul said. This is in Ephesians chapter 4. He said, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths." In one sentence, Paul makes it clear that unwholesome talk is not supposed to be part of our lives. Some of us read that and we think, okay, Paul means don't cuss. And while that's probably a good idea, right, I think there's more to what Paul is saying than just don't use a specific set of words, right? Like vocabulary regulation is kind of missing the bigger point. And so to dig in a little bit on this, Paul's letter was written in Greek. And if we were to look at the original word for unwholesome, because Paul is warning us against unwholesome talk, that word for unwholesome in Greek, one of its meanings is rotten. And that, my friends, is a really good word to describe what gossip is. It is talk about other people that rots. Trash talk or gossip rots friendships, relationships, and reputations. If you think about what rot is, it is taking something that was good and full and healthy and ruining it, watching it go bad. That's what gossip does to our relationships. So when we talk about other people or when we participate while somebody else does, we're actually contributing to the rotting of some of the things that actually matter the most to us. We're taking something that is good and healthy and we're ruining it. Because gossip, at its core, what gossip actually is ripping apart someone else's character. And that matters. As followers of Jesus, we can't just dismiss that as, well, everybody else does it. It's ripping apart somebody else's character. Gossip not only causes rot in the relationships around you, it almost always is an indicator of something unwholesome inside of you. Jesus himself talked about this. This is recorded in Mark chapter 7. It says, "It's not what goes into your body that defiles you. You are defiled by what comes from your heart." I'm going to read that one more time. It's not what goes into your body. It's not what you eat or drink that defiles you. You are defiled by what comes from your heart. According to Jesus, what comes out of you says a lot about what's within you. So when you gossip, it shows something that is going on inside your heart. More than the words you speak, it's about the motivation that causes you to say certain things or participate in certain conversations. It is an issue of the heart. And so if we go back to Paul, he gives us an alternative to unwholesome gossip. So if you're thinking, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? Let's listen to Paul. This is in Ephesians chapter 4. He says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen." In other words, if you will choose to put the needs of others ahead of your own, and when you think about who a person is in their hearts, instead of judging them, you'll stop yourself from gossip. If you can remind yourself that that one bit of information isn't their full story, that they are a full, complete person, and that, yeah, they might have messed up and done something scandalous, but we all mess up. And so if we can see them more fully and think about them as a full human being before you speak about them, you'll be a lot less likely to reduce them to just a juicy piece of information. Now, I get that that's a lot easier said than done. In a world where hating on people is a literal pastime, and for some people is an actual career path, it's hard to be the person who chooses wholesome over unwholesome. But this is also about your heart and whether it's producing fruit that is good or fruit that is rotten. It's important. And it's something that, because it's important, shouldn't be dictated by cultural standards. Because sometimes those cultural standards are too low. Think about it. You know people who trash talk their friends, who spread rumors, or always say something mean to other people. Like their main way of communicating with other people is to make jokes, but you know their jokes aren't really funny. They're really hurtful. And so as I'm saying that, you probably instantly had somebody pop into your mind. And you know what's really sad about that? When you think about that person, you think about that part of them. And so it seems like being hateful and being unkind to other people is kind of what they're about. Their behavior is producing rot. And as evidence, I am confident that you probably wouldn't trust them with anything that was important to you. So the fruit that their gossip is creating is that people won't have deep bonds with them because they don't trust them. Because their words are producing rot. On the flip side, you probably know someone that's the opposite. People that Don't participate in saying unkind things about other people, people that you've maybe told something important to, a secret, and they don't share it. And chances are that when you think about that person, you probably think about them in a pretty positive way. It is easy to respect people like that, people that don't participate in cutting other people down. And so what they're doing is they're growing good fruit in their lives. And as evidence, people probably trust them with a lot of important things, and because they've proven that they can be trusted. And so what's happening is they're building trustworthy relationships in their lives because they make a choice not to talk negatively about other people. They are bearing good fruit. And so when it comes to your conversations, this isn't about words to say or words not to say. Again, this is not about vocabulary regulation. This is really about what is in your heart. Do you want to be known as someone that loves others, and are you going to fight for that? Or are you going to just go with like the cultural current of like, yeah, I talk about people and I know it's mean, but I'm going to keep doing it? So you get to choose. You have a choice. You get to decide who you want to be and what you want to be known for. And for those of you who follow Jesus, that's why God gives us the power to live different. He wants us to be people that are known for love and not hate. Just because gossip in our culture is fun and normal and sometimes kind of hilarious and sometimes a way to feel like we're bonding with other people doesn't mean that we get to participate in it when we know it is unkind. Instead, you and I can choose to be about something else. We can seek the kind of reputation that Paul talked about. One where we're known as people who use words to help others, build them up, lift them up, make their needs a priority, where we actively choose love over hate. We want to let love be what we're about. Of all of the things that we could be known for, let's start with the thing that Jesus says is the greatest, which is love. And so we have to actively choose that by the way we live. And so that starts before words ever come out of our mouth. It starts with us deciding that we're going to care about other people no matter what they do. If what's in your heart is love, then your words will flow out of that. And I really like the words that Paul gives us because it ties in perfectly with what we want to be. We want to be people that are about love, and that when we talk about others, we need to ask ourselves a couple of questions. We need to ask ourselves, is this kind and is it helpful? Before you and I say anything, we need to ask ourselves that. We need to ask, the words I'm about to say, are those going to be helpful? Are they going to build someone else up? Is what I'm about to say kind? When we use the filter of being helpful and kind, it doesn't matter if the story is true, or if the joke is funny, or if the tea is really good. If it isn't helpful and it isn't kind, then it's not worth our words. If we choose to be all about love and to use this filter, the words we should and shouldn't use will become really clear. It's actually pretty amazing how practical a filter is that was thousands of years old, because this was Paul's idea. Paul was like, ask yourself, is this helpful? That filter is still very relevant for us. And so all of us get to decide whether we'll be known for being all about love or being someone that hates even when we know it's wrong. And so I would encourage you to let love be what you're all about.